afternoon and welcome to the NGOCC podcast that comes your way every Friday at 15 hours to address quite a number of issues that are affecting you in your community. To host you, my name is Chibesa Cecilia Mungulube, and on today's episode, I am privileged to chat with the National Prosecutions Authority, Ms. Chali Haambayi, who is going to talk quite a number of issues regarding gender-based violence in the country, as well as the no bail and bond issue that is currently on the table in Zambia. Good afternoon and welcome to the NGOCC podcast.
Good afternoon and happy to be here.
We are glad to have had you on this podcast to address this particular issue that is affecting quite a number of people in the country. Mm-hmm. But before we delve into the topic of discussion, perhaps tell us about yourself and your role here at NPA.
All right, thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Chali Haambayi, and I'm the director of the Gender-Based Crime and Child Protection Department. So coming from the National Prosecutions Authority, our mandate is to prosecute all sexual and gender-based violence offenses, violence against children in the courts of law. So we ply our trade in the GBV fast-track courts and the children's courts. So basically our mandate is to ensure that we prosecute in a manner that is victim-centered, trauma-informed, so that we do not occasion more harm or damage or cause secondary re-victimization for our victims and witnesses. So basically, that's what we do here at the National Prosecution Authority.
Okay. Now, gender-based violence is something that has been on the market for far too long. And of course, we appreciate the fact that people are now a little bit more open about this particular vice. They have the courage to go and report. People are being persecuted. Perhaps you could tell us how you are interpreting the high number of cases as NPA and what things that you're doing about it.
So the high number of cases could be, I think it's something that we haven't really studied as a country, but it could be on one hand attributed to the fact that we've really had a lot of awareness, sensitizations. I think this discourse has been going on for the past 30 years. I think from Beijing 1995, when we really galvanized as a country to talk about women's equity and equality. So there's more sensitizations, more discussions, government departments like ourselves, NGOCC like yourselves, really mobilizing on the ground, talking to traditional leaders, community leaders, faith-based leaders. So I think we're having a lot of light on the issue. But on the other hand as well, there could be an issue of the increase in cases. I think there has been, the past, I think 1 or 2 years, something that has been happening that we have seen an increase in the cases of sexual violence, especially against girl children. When we look at the dockets or the cases that we receive, a lot of incest cases, so there's a lot of incest that's happening in the homes. And now we're wondering, the home is supposed to be your refuge, a safe haven, you know? So if violence is happening there, where does a person run to? We've also seen an increase in violence against boys, sexual violence, being sodomized, be it in school context or even in the home context, visitors coming to visit and they, molest your child. So for us prosecutors who deal with these issues, we're even saying, are we going to reach a point where now we don't allow visitors? Are we going to reach a point where we are now walking with our children everywhere because you don't know where to leave them? They're not safe anywhere. So, I think those two issues, increase in cases, increase in awareness. That's why I think more the spotlight has been shown on this problem.
Now, Cabinet recently approved the amendment of the Criminal Procedure Code to make some sexual offenses non-bailable. So you could maybe share more light on this development and what it means, and if you have any anticipated impact on this particular development.
Yeah, I mean, because of the outcry that we've had in the recent past, the increase of these sexual violence cases against children, it was felt that we needed to stiffen the provisions on release of accused persons. So what was there or what is currently subsisting, since this is still a bill, it hasn't been enacted yet, is that sexual offenses, be it rape, indecent assaults, incest, they're all bailable or bondable. But what we have noticed is that sometimes when perpetrators are granted bond or bail, due to various factors, not having enough shelters, for example, and if the violence happens in the home, the perpetrator is reported, they are given bond or bail, they go back into the same home. And now they intimidate the victim, intimidate all the witnesses. And what we have come to learn is that this violence is not going to be perpetuated mostly by strangers. So when we even tell our children stranger danger, that's not where the danger is. The danger is in your household and the people that are known around you. So in order to mitigate against this, to enhance protection for victims, that is why this proposal has been brought onto the table. Also, we have noticed in the criminal justice system that when perpetrators are granted bail or bond, there are some that flee. They run away and they cannot be traced. And what does that mean for us? Then we have to discontinue that case. So we'll have cases, sometimes 6 months we're just adjourning and the court is asking you, NPA, where's the accused person? Where's the accused person? We will issue a bench warrant through the police, they'll try and trace them, but they run away, they've moved to different countries. So is that justice for our victims? So this is what it is intended to do, and also to show the seriousness of this offense. You see, when you look at aggravated robbery, for example, it's got a minimum sentence of 15 years. It's not bailable or bondable. Defilement has got a minimum of 15 years. Rape has got a minimum of 20 years. So how are we going to show that these crimes that affect women and girls are also serious? The way you would equate it, aggravated robbery, maybe a bank has been robbed or someone has been beaten, force has been used, their phone has been stolen. So that shows the gravity. So we also want to show the same gravity for sexual and gender-based violence. And I think there's been a tendency sometimes among stakeholders, the public, to kind of minimize the severity of this type of offense. No, it's your husband, just leave him. Oh, it's your boyfriend. No means yes. Oh, he bought you a glass of wine, so it means you consented to the sex. So it's like there are always explanations and not really attaching the weight that it deserves. So having these provisions are going to safeguard our witnesses, safeguard the interests of the public, and also once we have these provisions, it also puts impetus on the criminal justice system, be it the police, the prosecutors, the judiciary, to expedite the cases. So we'll not even be delaying our cases because we know that, okay, somebody's in custody and we can't keep them, you can't have the case pending for many years. We need to expedite, and it will enhance, I think, the efficacy and efficiency of the GBV fast track court. So from that angle, and looking at, as a practitioner who deals with gender-based violence, it is something that is welcome because there has been a lot of challenges in this aspect.
Before we proceed, you've talked about a very important issue of people withdrawing cases and being intimidated because you're related to this person, because they're your parent. Do you think sort of tradition and society has a role that it is playing in the way that people treat these cases of incest, rape, and defilement?
Exactly. It's got a lot to do with our cultural norms and the traditions. So even when you look at intimate partner violence, someone is in an abusive, toxic relationship, you're told, no, you need to hang in there, you shipikisha. That's your marriage. It's do or die, whatever the violence. So you find when victims try to report, they are being sent back to those marriages by their parents, by their faith-based leaders. Sometimes you find church pastors telling someone, God hates divorce. But meanwhile, there's rampant abuse, there's cheating, there's adultery, all those markers that ideally you should say, you know what, in this context, you should walk away. So we have a lot of pressure that is borne on our victims. And again, the issue of victim blaming. So for example, you find that someone is married, their partner is violent. They are beaten merciless, they go and report to the police. When the family members for the accused person come, their narrative is, how could you take him to jail? Why are you so cruel? Why would you put your husband in this situation? And we never look at it like, no, the husband is the one who has put himself in this situation. So that's mentality of victim blaming. So in other offenses, for example, even theft from person, you're walking along Cairo Road, someone snatches your phone. You never hear that victim blaming like, oh, Chibesa, why were you walking in Cairo Road? Never. When it comes to GBV, because of the subordination of women and girls, our patriarchal norms, the power that is invested in the male folk, you find a lot of victim blaming that is, I think it helps the male folk to get away with so many things. So it has a lot to do with our cultures and our beliefs. And so I think as a consortium, as government, NGOs, CSOs, FBOs, traditional leaders, we really need to sit down and start to deconstruct some of these norms that are very, very harmful.
Someone would argue and say not allowing bail and bond could be a violation of the rights of the suspect. So how will this work, and will it help to curb gender-based violence?
It doesn't really curb the rights of a suspect. So we already have other offenses like murder. There's no bail. Aggravated robbery. There's no bail. And we have a lot of people already in the system who are not on bail or already inside and in custody. And cases are being expedited. And you see, the criminal justice system is really working hard. I don't know if you've heard of the mobile courts that we've been conducting, where judges, magistrates, prosecutors, legal aid counsel, we go and have court sessions in the prisons aimed at decongesting the prisons, aimed at identifying case backlogs and coming up with measures to expedite and fast-track cases. Coming from the perspective of a prosecutor, we need to balance these rights. So there's a victim also who's been violated. There's an accused person also whose liberty has been taken temporarily. So we have to balance those and ensure that at least the ends of justice speak to both parties. So it's not something that is going to cause arbitrary deprivation. And again, for someone to be arrested, there must be probable cause. There's evidence. So we're just not getting people, hey, we've seen you. There must be evidence that, that is cogent, that we know can withstand courts, that there's a probability of having a conviction. So all those parameters are in place to protect against arbitrary deprivation from the public.
Okay. So what are some of the interventions that NPA is currently doing to curb gender-based violence and incest and other forms of violence that are currently happening, especially towards women and girls? Any interventions that you are currently employing?
Yeah. So we have quite a number of interventions that we are employing to ensure that, one, we are helping in the prevention and response mechanisms. So when it comes to prevention, we are collaborating with so many NGOs, government line ministries to conduct sensitizations, going into the communities, into the schools, into the market. So you'll find lawyers ourselves, we'll just put on our T-shirts and we'll go and sit at a market, talk to the people in the community, go to churches. Can we unveil this issue of, GBV? Can we demystify it and address it as it needs to be? And when it comes to our case management strategies, we're ensuring that we have a specialized department that I'm heading that has got specially trained prosecutors who understand trauma, who know how to conduct interviews for traumatized victims, witnesses, and even for child witnesses, so that we don't even cause more harm. We are prosecuting in a manner that is also demystifying these stereotypes, if you are raped, the medical report must always have specific findings. If there are no specific findings, then there's no rape or defilement, and you'd find cases being kicked out of court and not being investigated properly. So we are arguing cases that have been confirmed by the Supreme Court that it is possible to be raped or defiled and not to have specific findings on the medical report. We've also been dealing with issues of ensuring that our victims and witnesses, especially for children, are protected. So the provisions that we fought for to have in the Children's Code Act, for example, not asking about the previous sexual history of a child, it's not relevant. Not talking about the lateness of the reporting. It doesn't mean that if a child discloses abuse 1 year later, it means that they are lying. No, it means that there's trauma. So understanding those dynamics and prosecuting cases in a manner that showcase all those issues. We also have the Witness Management Fund here at NPA that we use to give victims and witnesses logistical support. So we can provide lunch allowance, transport allowance, even accommodation. And sometimes we've bought air tickets if witnesses have traveled out or they've relocated, all for the ends of justice. We have witness liaison officers here at the NPA who are trained social workers. So they also counsel witnesses. They can even accompany a victim or a witness to court. So if they're so traumatized, the witness liaison officer can sit right next to the victim and just offer that support. So we are doing all this, working collaboratively. Again, a multi-sectoral approach is the cornerstone of GBV case management. You cannot work in silos. So we work very closely with the one-stop centers, the police, social workers, in order to provide holistic services for our survivors and victims. So there's quite a lot, and we are always open to more collaboration. We are happy to join hands with different actors, faith-based organizations, NGOs, traditional leaders, because we know that this is not a problem that government can solve on its own. Even the private sector, we need to join hands to deal with the issue that is happening in our communities.
How are you as NPA interacting with negative culture norms to ensure that you help in reducing the number of cases? Apart from what you have mentioned, is there anything else that you're doing, maybe engagement with traditional leaders, community leaders, to just ensure that you bring down these cases?
Yes, we do have those engagements with community leaders, traditional leaders, and because we are present in 66 districts in Zambia, so I think our spread is quite wide. So you'll find we're working with traditional leaders in Northern Province, in Central Province, just fostering those discussions. What do you do when a case has happened in your chiefdom? Who do you call? What are the parameters? How would you preserve evidence? Because sometimes you find something has happened and they'll birth the child, wash away all that evidence, so we're having these discussions. This is how we should deal with this. Some of these things like child marriage, for example, the Marriage Amendments Act of 2023 and the Children's Code Act is prohibited. So we're also having those discussions with traditional leaders that if you have such instances of a child that's been married off, you need to step in, pull the child away, refer them to social welfare, and bring the perpetrator to the police so that we prosecute, because we want also to have cases prosecuted, convictions that are disseminated to deter would-be offenders. Because if you have a prosecution, someone who married a 13-year-old has been sentenced, for example, maybe to 10 years, you publicize that. It's a deterrent factor. The next person who thinks about marrying off their daughter or their son will think twice and say, this is not, the law of the land has said no. So those are the ways that we're using to use the law to kind of tackle some of these negative and harmful cultural practices.
So how can, let's say, stakeholders like NGOCC collaborate with NPA to work towards ensuring that gender-based violence is curbed?
So even for institutions like NGOCC, we have an open door policy as the NPA. If you are willing to work with us in whichever types of crimes, whether it's financial crimes, asset recovery, gender-based violence, violence against children, our doors are always open. So we even have MOUs with various NGOs. We collaborate and see how we can just leverage our resources to ensure that we are providing holistic services. So if you come approach the office of the DPP, that door will always be open to foster collaboration. Again, as I said, government cannot do this alone. We need partners to supplement. We need private sector to walk the journey with us. So we always have that open door policy.
Mrs. Haambayi, there's probably someone who is watching you right now and they're a victim of rape or incest and they failed to come out. What would be your words for them?
What I would say is that please do come out. We are here to help you. And I know sometimes victims or survivors have that fear, no, my name will be publicized, there'll be a story on Facebook. But we've been working very closely with the courts to ensure that we have anonymity. We don't publish the names of victims. Proceedings are held in camera, so your privacy will be safeguarded. And what we need to know is that it may be difficult, yes, to come out, but there are so many stakeholders that have been trained, the police, the NPA, social welfare, even the courts themselves, to ensure that, the courtroom and the criminal process is as friendly as possible. And not speaking up also means that this perpetrator is still walking around in society, and they'll go and harm more people. So when we have the courage to stand up and report, we are here to hold your hand. Whatever support that we can give you, we will give you, and we will fight for your dignity, your justice, and your day in court.
There are some women whose children have reported maybe incest by the brother, the uncle, or the cousin, but because it didn't really happen, it was attempted. They decided to just keep quiet about it. So what would be your words to those women or family members or relatives who would rather just shun away a case of attempted incest or rape because it didn't happen, so we can't report it?
So our penal code it's got provisions for attempts to committing an offense. So you don't even actually have to do it. You have provisions that prohibit an attempt. You have the Children's Code Act that has got provisions on sexual exploitation. So it doesn't even have to be like the actual penetrative sexual act, but even the grooming, even on the Cyber Crimes Act, right? So we have offenses like grooming, soliciting a child online, sending them messages. All those are offenses. So what I would say for our sisters, our mothers who sometimes tend to minimize, that we need to speak up. The more we speak up, the more publicity we get, and the more you demystify this, and the more it stops being a taboo. Because when we start hashing and closing things up, we create a system of secrecy. You put a child in a bubble of secrecy, and that bubble of secrecy extends to all other family members. And so you find generations of families members who have been abused, sometimes even from the same perpetrator, and nothing being done. So we need to speak up, and we are here to support. So I can never emphasize that more, especially for our mothers. your child, you are the only person who can stand up for that child. They have no other person that can offer the support and the love that you can give as a mother. So we need to encourage that reporting. And there are safety nets, that can be provided, shelters, empowerment programs that can help you navigate even as you walk away if the perpetrator is a breadwinner. There are some interventions that have been put in place to encourage such reporting, because as long as we still keep this under wraps, we'll never adequately deal with this issue. And the fact that it happens in our homes is more reason why we need to speak up.
We are commemorating the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. What is your message?
Our message, looking at this year's theme that is talking about online and digital violence, that is something that we are really, really concerned about, because obviously Zambia has reached a level of digitization. Children, women, boys and girls, they all have smartphones nowadays, and those platforms can be used for violence, harassment, sextortion, blackmail, so many things that can happen, online grooming of children. And we have seen cases where perpetrators groom children on Facebook, texting, I'm also 15 years old, come to my house, we play with my PlayStation 5. The child goes to the house, finds an adult, sodomized, right? So we need to join hands with the public, NGOs, everybody, the private sector, to ensure that we have security on the online platforms. Because technology is a powerful tool that can lead us to achieving our sustainable development goals, galvanizing education, so many things that you can use with technology. But that also creates a risk. So we need to ensure that we safeguard the welfare of people who use these digital mediums. So we want to say, as the NPA, that commemorating the 16 days of gender activism, we are conducting sensitizations in schools, one-stop centers with the police, talking to community leaders just to see how we can sensitize the public on the laws that are available. Because I bet some people don't even know that the Cyber Crimes Act has got offenses like, solicitation of a child, online grooming, all those issues. We need to capacitate the public to understand the laws that are available, because you can only claim your rights when you know that you have a right. So we are happy to join hands. So we do go on joint missions with NGOCC. If you're going to a market, you're going to a school, call upon us as NPA to also provide that legal overview of the legal frameworks, and just talk about court processes that maybe you may not be able to adequately tackle. But because we are specialized, we're prosecutors, we are the repository of criminal law, information and justice, would be able to join hands with you.
Thank you so much for your time and for allowing us to come through and discuss this very important issue.
You're most welcome, and call upon us again. Our door is always open.
Thank you so much. This has been the NGOCC podcast. And of course, on today's episode, we are tackling gender-based violence, understanding the bill that has been placed upon Parliament of no bail and bond to any sexual violence cases. My name is Chibesa Cecilia Mungulube, and I hope that you have learned something and that you'll be courageous enough to report any cases of gender-based violence, regardless of the relationship you share with the perpetrator. Please take time to go and report that case to prevent any further damage to you or any other person who might be a victim. My name is Chibesa Cecilia Mungulube, and I was chatting with Mrs. Chali Haambayi. Thank you for watching.